All right, everybody, welcome to Knox Makers. It's Tuesday. You know what that means. It means that we're going to do our show and share. We've done it every Tuesday for, I don't know, how many years now? 12, 13 years, something like that. Come rain or shine, holiday or not, we're here. Basically, you show off a project you're working on, whether it's a failure, a success, we like to see it all. We do have a sign-up sheet, so I'm going to start with it. First up on the list is Joe Pardue, who's going to show off It Might Be a Lamp.
Yeah, it might be. I stole the battery. Okay. Sorry. I think there's a fundamental law about demoing, especially electronic stuff. The battery case fell apart just there, and I just managed to get it back together. So anyway, I'm Joe Pardue, and I am, believe it or not, a graduate student in plant sciences at the University of Tennessee, and I'm not the oldest person in the building. We have a forestry major who's 87, so he won the prize. But anyway, I got a botany master's in the University of Texas 50 years ago. And about 10 years after that, I became an electrical engineer, which is what I made my career out of. Then I retired and played around the garden and decided to go back to school because basically I'm a little crazy. What I'm studying is trying to make low-cost grow chambers and the instrumentation and the controls for those grow chambers. Because you get a light meter, a research-grade light meter is going to cost you well, you can get some for around $500, but this particular one that I'm duplicating there's one version that's $2,000, one version is $3,000, and it's nothing but this guy right here and a controller for it. And this guy got from Adafruit for about $16. And I told one of a person on my committee that I could replace a $500 meter with one's just as good for $50, and he said, I don't think you can. But it doesn't matter. I'm in the middle of doing the research, and I just printed this case, and I needed something. This device measures not only the light intensity, but it also measures there's another one like it. It measures 14 bands within the visible light or the spectrum that plants like to use. So in order to test this is the thing that may or may not be a lamp. Oh, okay. There we go. So I trained this just to do a little bit of a scrolling demo kind of stuff, and I labeled everything with library card holders to give it a little bit of a steampunk vibe. And let's see, will it focus on it? Probably not. Well, there we go. Let's have fun. Yeah, the other way, your other right, I know. Yeah, okay. So these lights, and look, you can't even tell what color they are. There are 10 different colored lights here. LEDs, they come in a lot of different colors. And so what this is made for is I can take my meter and I can just place it over there, and as it comes on, it'll scroll, it's PWM to raise and lower the brightness, and I then should be able to chart this, which I did this weekend to a certain extent. And it runs off of a Raspberry Pi Pico. Now, what is absolutely stunning to me is this guy costs $6. It's got Wi-Fi, and I would normally think it's going to take me a week to write a program so that I could go on the internet and control all of these lights, the intensity, whether they're on or off, or thing like that. It would take me a week to write that code, right? That's with me having had some significant programming experience. Let's see if we can actually see this. because I have to hardwire in the SSID and the password, I decided not to try to demo it here. But this is here at home, and you can't really tell, but I got 10 sliders that I can control the intensity over the internet, and what has totally blown me away is I used ChatGPT as my coding buddy. I did it in an afternoon. It would have taken me at least 5 days and even more hair loss to have done that in a week. An afternoon. It's an amazing tool. So, yeah, and I'm going to be building a bunch of other instruments, and the grow chamber itself is 500 millimeters cubed, and it's light tight, and the fans are light tight. And I've actually been building that mostly with the laser cutter when I can convince it to work for me. Any questions? So, okay, I'm hard of hearing. If anybody asks a question, wave your hand, and then somebody else yell. What?
Is it as effective as the $2,000 model, or are you still in the range of that?
I decided today, not only is it going to be as effective, that these guys that with the $2,000 and $3,000, two different companies, they happen to provide some specs that are identical to this. And they do a little bit of cheating. They refer to, you're going to love this, 12 nanometer half full width, half max, but then they show it at 1 nanometer resolution. So they show a full spectrum as if it were a radiometer, and it isn't. They're cheating. And I'm going to consult with them on that to see exactly how they do it. But they've got really outstanding software, and the software is worth something. And the quality of the device itself is just absolutely tops. So if you're doing research, what's the difference in paying that? But if you're doing it on your own, like I'm growing lettuce and tomatoes in my house, I wanted a light meter. I didn't want to pay $500. So that's what got me started on this. Any other? Yes.
So you're using it to measure the light for your salad machine, so you get the lights, correct?
Yes. Part of what's going to happen is there's a researcher, Bruce Bugby, out in Utah, who in an interview recently made a statement, and he said that LEDs are to plant sciences what the telescope was to astronomy. Now, that's a pretty powerful statement. But there's a Hates' law, which says that LEDs, the efficiency goes up by a factor of 20 every 10 years, and the cost goes down by a factor of 10 every 10 years. So, I would say that in 10 to 20 years, it's going to be cheaper to just like grow plants in a blocked off room like this than it is out in the greenhouse. Because in the greenhouse, you're getting all that free sunlight, but you're also having to cool it or heat it. In here, it's a lot cheaper to cool and heat, and the LEDs are going to be so cheap that, you'll just be able to have large grow rooms. So I think that is, that's the future of it. Anyway, question, is it a lamp? Okay, any more questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe. That was excellent. I'm always surprised at just how much Arduinos come into play with research around UT and education.
Yeah, your laser cutter is way bigger than the one they have at UT.
Our laser cutter is way bigger. Yes. All right, next up is Neil, who's going to talk about some classes.
Okay, they're back. Wood Turning 102 and 202 are coming back. They will be the second and third Thursday of November, and they'll be on the calendar shortly. And some exciting news, we have 2 new classes that we're going to start also in November. One of them is going to be a pen turning class, where you will learn how to turn a pen. And this will be a hands-on class, and you will leave with a pen that you turn. materials will be supplied, and that is going to happen I believe we're going to look at the first Thursday of November. That will be available. And then the other class that is coming on is we've been having some issues with the bandsaws lately, so we decided that it's probably a good idea to start teaching people how to use a bandsaw. So there will be a bandsaw authorization class where you will learn the various things necessary, like how not to destroy a bandsaw blade, how to change it if you forget, how to destroy a bandsaw blade, and the proper adjustments so it cuts properly like a good bandsaw blade. So that's going to come up. We really recommend you take that before you get back on the bandsaw. And so that's the 4 classes. They should be on the calendar in the next day or two. So the pen turning class will have a maximum of 6 participants. The 2 wood turning classes have a maximum of 4 participants each. And on the bandsaw, it will probably be also 6 participants, will be what the limits are in those classes. So watch, if it's a class you're interested in, watch for the calendar and get your name in there as soon as possible. Any questions about, one other thing too. You'll notice on the hospitality table there are some green sheets. One of my friends recently passed away, and I am helping his wife sell off all the tools that were in his workshop. These are really good quality tools. Many of them are new and had never been used. So if you're interested in woodworking power tools, look for that green sheet on the table in hospitality and see what's there. Okay? Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Neil. Next up, Laurie is going to show us a delusional project.
Delusional. Hi there. Hi. Hi. I'm hoping my phone doesn't die. Okay. Sure, and then I'm going to go down. Tight. Yeah, make that go shorter. All right. All right, so last year I signed up to do the Flourish Fashion Show for IMES. And as you know, I do imperfect sewing. I teach imperfect sewing. And I usually make pajama bottoms, and I decided to do 3 outfits for a fashion show. It was all for charity, which is good. So my models were Travis Tent, his beautiful wife Lily, and their adorable daughter June. And I partnered with my friend Siobhan Jones from the Mighty Wig. She makes costume wigs and also medical grade hair loss wigs also. She's phenomenal. So she helped me with it. She had done it twice before. So I'm like, I've got somebody that does this. So she helped me do that. So Travis is also a performer, and he actually, in trade, he wrote me a theme song for my business, Monsters Made with Love, which is amazing. So I got a bunch, I don't know if that light's too bright, whatever. Turn that off. I don't know why it's not showing very well. Anyway, there's a bunch of fabric that I got. Tons and tons and tons of fabric. Also, the theme was funk versus punk. And I'm a punker from the 80s. I'm like, yes, this is my theme. And so I actually wanted to embrace things that I wore, which, believe it or not, back in the 80s, I wore a lot more color than I do now. I wear a lot of black right now. But anyway, so I got a lot of my fabric. Because it was a sustainable fashion show, everything needed to be either thrifted, gifted, or natural fibers. So I thrifted some things, but I got most of my fabric from the Fabric Workshop here in South Knoxville. It's fantastic. So you can go there and just get fabric and trade fabric and whatever you want to do, and it's free. And then, so I came to Knox Makers, my place, and I asked you guys for a lot of help and a lot of things. So this is some of my list of things that I thought I was going to get done for this great fashion show. I'm also a procrastinator, so the fact that I started 2 months ahead of time, I thought I was doing great, okay? Thought I was really great, but I was then again delusional. So I spent many, many, many long nights here at Knox Makers doing things. I've learned some new things. I did some wet felting for the first time. It was really, really cool to do wet felting. And so wet felting has a lot to do with soap and water and pH and science and tangling things, and it was super cool to do. I also learned how to use the serger for the first time. I also learned how to thread a serger. Okay, that's even harder than sewing with one. It was so much fun. So I took some things that I had around the house. I hurt myself. I put a pin right through my finger. This was a giant curtain that I got for $3. It was a satin curtain that I got for $3 at a thrift store. And that's some of the whole bunch of fabric that I sewed onto it. And the vest, I turned it into, because I'm also the monster lady, so I wanted to do a theme of monsters, because that's what I'm all about. So use some fur, and that's some of the more of the fabric. I actually learned the proper way of using a seam ripper, okay? There is a proper way. You don't have to do one stitch at a time. There's a way you can slide it. It's so cool. I can teach all you guys. Anyway, so learn how to do that. A lot of seam ripping and a lot more hours, And this is kind of what it started to turn out like. This is just the skirt. So I wore a lot of leopard print, animal print, and a lot of fabric. I used some accessories that were gifted to me by some of the members here, and some of the ones that those gloves I had back in the 80s. And the bracelet. That spider rocks. I forgot the gentleman that let me borrow that, but that is part of the skirt making it. This is we did a fantastic photo shoot. So the wigs were, Siobhan Jones did the wigs, and then this is a fashion shoot we did with Sarai Taylor Roman, and the baby cried the entire time. She did not want anything to do with her parents dressed up in wigs. She was totally freaked out. This is a picture of the back of it. The day of the fashion show, she was totally cool with it. She's like, my parents rock. They're cool. So this is the back of the skirt and the wig, and this is the dad, and those are the spikes that I made that go on the back. I also made a fishnet top that he was wearing. My goal was to make some really cool shoes with tire tread and spikes. I know Neil made some really cool wood spikes for me to put on the shoulders. It didn't work out. Derek made me some buttons for the denim jacket. They did work. We actually got best photo of the week from Knoxville News. It was photo of the week, which is really cool. And this is just some of it, them walking down the thing. It was such a really, really cool adventure to be able to do. And the fact that I don't typically sew, this was a big, huge adventure for me. There are so many things that I wanted to do, like his shoes were supposed to have tire tread on the bottom and a bunch of spikes and bolts and knit. That's delusional. Wasn't going to happen. Isn't going to happen. But it was a lot of fun to be able to do. And they have fantastic family photos to go along with this, which is really cool. So that is what I did. I meant to bring the jacket with me. I thought it was in the bag. It must have fallen out. But this is the skirt. Let's see where. So this is just the skirt. And it is totally perfectly imperfect, but it's a skirt. And it's totally cool. And I made it. So I made it. And it went down a fashion show. It was so cool. So my inner fashion designer that I always wanted to be growing up just burst. I mean, I'm so excited I was able to do it. So they are doing it every year. I don't know the theme this year. If anybody wants to help me with it, I am delusional. I'm not delusional anymore. I will never do it by myself again. I will have a partner, if not 2 or 3, to do it again next year. But if anybody's afraid to sew or they want to learn how to sew, I do teach. I have a class coming up this Friday, and we make monsters. Okay, monsters made with love, and I'll teach you guys how to perfectly imperfect sew. I typically don't teach how to use a seam ripper, but I will. But I'll teach you how to use the needle threader. Okay, definitely teach you how to use one of those. All right, any questions? Yes.
What did you make those head spiky things?
The head spiky, that was Siobhan made that, and what she did is she took a base wig and it's actually cardboard that she taped together to make spikes, and then she put hair over the top of it and glued the hair over the top of it. Many, many long hours of her trying to make those stand up straight and not fall down. It was incredible. And he wore that wig for almost 4 hours before dress up and everything like that. Yeah, he was a trooper. He's a trooper. Yep. Any other question? Oh my gosh. I would say I actually spent so much time seam ripping and trying to figure it out and trying to figure out the colors, because I wear a lot of black, and trying to figure out how the colors mix and match. I took some in and out. I talked to my daughter. She's an art student, and I'm like, what colors go well? So I would say probably a good almost 15 hours straight sewing at least, if I didn't go to sleep in between. But I spent a lot of time here. It was really cool also to use a dress form. I'd never used one before, and it was such a huge help. So I'm trying to get one for my home too. If anybody has one laying around, or you find one on Facebook Marketplace that I don't catch, let me know, okay? All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, next up, Thea with Mask Attempt 1.
As some of you know, I spend way too much time on Pinterest. With Halloween coming up, there have been a lot of masquerade masks and stuff. So I made one. And I'm calling it attempt number 1 because those eye holes are long and narrow. It does not fit my face, irritates my eyelashes, and I can't see a thing. So it turned out well. I completed the crochet, but I absolutely can't wear it. So it's one of those cases where it's both a success and a failure at the same time. Yeah. So. Yeah, it's crochet cotton number 10.
Did you stiffen it?
Yes. I have a spray stiffener, but the actual design of it, it comes down to a point right there at the nose, and it pinches in too much. And so it keeps getting caught on my eyelashes every time I blink. So, there are 2 other patterns that I bookmarked, so I'll try one of those first. But really what you need is something where it doesn't end and stop at the same point. It needs to be a rounder eye, and that'll solve the problem. But you see, even when you pull this apart, then it just distorts here, so you need to change how the nose piece is attached. And there are different ways. So I'll bring back attempt number 2.
Can you hold it up to your face just so we can see the size of it? Oh, now. Oh my gosh, I love it.
How long would something like that take?
This pattern was surprisingly complicated. You had to count stitches going forward and back and forward and back. I think it took me 16 hours total. So it doesn't look big and complicated, but the pattern was not something you could do watching TV. You had to count. So, any other questions?
Thank you. Last up on our list is Greenho with toys.
Hey everyone. On occasion, I make runs of toys for kids because I just think it's fun. I paid for much of my college making toys for grown-ups, and I think it's like fun homage to play back to that. A couple years ago, I made a number of these. Let's zoom out here. These are cameras. They're solid state. They run off Raspberry Pi bushes or something like that. And if you look through the viewfinder, you can see what I'm talking about. I'm not actually going to talk much about those, but they're kind of cool. These are nice because you can make them, like you can gang them up. I think I made like 70 of them last time I did it. I only made 5 this time. But you just make them from scrap. Like this is what almost made it into my my kitchen cabinet drawers. So I'll send them around. You can check them out. But what I actually want to talk about is this one here. So some friends of ours have 2-year-old, Archie, 2-year-old, just turned 3, some age, old enough that he should own his own hand plane. I think it's ridiculous that anyone would go to kindergarten without, showcasing proper form and everything. So anyway, so I made this one. Let's zoom out a little more. So this one is made out of mostly solid mahogany, and if you were to, I can get this thing apart. I didn't bring mine. Here. Good utilization of a phone. Hold up. Normally you have a mallet to knock these things in and out. Of course I can't do it right now. But it's got an ebony blade in there. It comes to a flat end. I don't know if you can see that. I'll send this thing around so you can look at it a little closer. But anyway, let's go into a 3-year-old. I thought he'd get a kick out of it. I'll do a little bit of showing how I made it because I think that's kind of fun. If I were to swap out that ebony blade for a real blade, that's a totally functional plane. So I think at some point, like some future birthday, maybe I'll send along the actual blade that would function with it. Let's see here. So it all starts as just like a block of wood, nothing special. You can see a pencil for reference. I don't know if that picks up much, but it all starts with layout lines. There's a kind of a lot that goes into plane making. One of the more important lines is this one right here. That one right there, that's the bed angle, so that's the angle that it would be cutting at. The one up from that is the abutment angle, which is what the I don't even know what it's called really, but there's like a cap iron that comes in on it. That's what that sits up against. And then you have another one up top. So that one right there, my big fingers, that's so that you could reach in there and pull out shavings. And then the secondary angle on that is what's called if I'm remembering this right, the wear line. So as you use a wooden hand plane, the bottom wears down, so the opening that the blade sticks out of keeps getting larger and larger and larger. So you want that angle to be as close to vertical as possible so that you get more life out of the plane. And then you just extend those around. And typically what you do is you would chop out that hole with chisels, and it's quite a difficult thing to do, to be perfectly honest. I've always wanted to do a class on hand plane making. I think it would be really cool, except technically that use of a chisel is very challenging for most people, so I never bothered. So I've been trying to figure out a better way to do this. So what I decided on this one is to use the hollow square mortar saw that we have, and you can see I'm just lining up in my little square there with the axis of the mortising machine to basically line up with my lines. And you can do that from both sides like that, so you can see it follows my lines perfect. And it allows you to like chop out and hog out most of that material. And then the last bit is easily removed with a hand plane. Now there's still some pretty intricate work that you have to do in order to get everything to line up perfect, but way, way easier. The last thing you do is like clean up down here at the bottom. Let's see here. You see I'm starting to, the exposure is very difficult, but here I'm laying out lines for the tote. Kind of same thing there. There I've mortised out for the tote, so the tote actually sits down in. Historically, you'd always glue these in with a reversible glue, so when you break the tote, you can steam the thing, remove the tote, put a new one in. So obviously that's what I did. Yeah, and then just making my life easy by chopping stuff out. So the whole thing is made out of mahogany, which is just lovely to work with. If you're ever trying to carve anything or work with like really intricate things, get yourself genuine mahogany. African mahogany is like just okay. But yeah, it works like butter. It cuts so easy. Like the grain, it's like no issues at all. And I tell you that to say I broke the first tote that I made for this thing, which was so frustrating because I only had just the right amount of mahogany like sitting in my scrap pile to make this out of. So the handle on that, if you look, it looks a little bit different. That's actually sapele, which is what they use instead of mahogany now because they visually look the same, but when you're working with them, like absolutely not at all the same. So you try to work the tote as much as possible while it's still in a big block because holding on to tiny little things is very challenging. So there it is, like mostly cut out. This is actually the second one that I've swapped over to now. And then it's just like a lot of cleanup to make the thing all look, you know, fine and dandy. There's the iron that, or the iron that I made for it. This thing here on a larger plane, this is a very easy thing to make. On these tiny little ones that it's so challenging to make. Long taper cuts on a table saw are, you know, dangerous when they get this size, and cutting them by hand is also quite a challenge. And this does need to be like perfect to, you know, I don't know, ideally like the thousandths of an inch so that it fits in there and like doesn't all fall apart. And there it is. Any questions?
Do you plan on making some for adults?
Probably not toys, but maybe real ones.
That's what I mean, yes.
Yeah, at some point. Actually, I have a 8-foot long piece of Purple Heart that is 4 inches by 4 inches, so it's big enough to make like big planes out of. And I'll probably be using that. So the problem with plane making today is you really need at least 12 quarter stock that's dried and quarter sawn. So like the requirements for the materials are just not commonly available for purchase anymore. So if you're like making your own blanks and planning 3 years in advance, it's like super inexpensive to make your own plane. But if you're gonna go to like Jeffrey's and try to buy something that you can use today, likely you'll go through the entire stock they have there and not find a single thing that's appropriate. Yeah, it's tough to just plan ahead on that. And then, I guess one other thing, on all of the tools and toys I make, from starting a few years back, I started punching in the date that I made them because I think it's fun to look back on and be like, oh, this was made in 2022 or 2024. And I just think it's fun, yeah.
Can you laminate 4 quarter stock, like 12 quarter, or does that affect the integrity?
So yes, and that's like a common approach for plane making today because, like I was saying, the difficult part is chopping out that hole. So what a lot of people do is they will basically glue on sides to something that they have cut like their angles on, and it's fine. They definitely will check. They definitely will move more. Every time you glue something like that, you're internalizing a bunch of internal stresses that are going to be relieving themselves like every time the weather changes, which is why you really need to look closely at what stock that you pick for something that you actually intend to use. And that's why you want something that's quarter sawn. That's why you get the grain direction absolutely perfect. So you're planing with the grain. If you take my classes, I always talk about like going with the grain when you are using hand tools. Well, if you have a hand tool made out of wood, it also needs to be with the grain. So like as you're using the plane, it should be like the grain should be running downhill instead of uphill, if that makes sense. So there's just like a lot of considerations on it, but yeah.
Did you use a sander?
I did, yeah. Honestly, on something that ergonomic, it's one of the better options that you have, yeah. Any other questions? Cool, thanks.
All right, starting them young, teaching them the good word of hand planes. Good. That is it for the sign-up list. Did anyone have something they want to show off and didn't make it to the list? Real quick. Yes? Okay, come on up.
Keep my stuff out of my bag. Hi, everyone. This is my first night, actually. This is the first time I've been here. So thank you all for being so welcome and warm. It's awesome. So much appreciated. So about myself, I'm fairly new to Knoxville. Well, I guess not anymore. I moved to Knoxville 3 years ago. My name is Bill Alexander. I'm a scientist at Oak Ridge National Labs. That's why I moved here, to take a position. I'm a biologist by trade. And the type of biologist that does a lot of engineering. I'm a synthetic biologist, so most of what I do for a living is hacking organisms, manipulating their genome. But my first love was electronics and radio. When I was 16, I was taking apart stuff. I worked full-time at a radio station in southern Missouri for 2 years full-time and then 3 more years part-time. And then I got a job in biology. And so it completely changed course. But as I'm getting older, I'm getting kind of bored with it. I want something new, so I'm going back to electronics. All right, so fast forward to where I am now. So this is what I brought to show. No, everyone knows what this is, right? Flipper Zero, one of these little microcontrollers on a stick. I didn't build this, I was joking. But this is a thing I got for a present because my in-laws knew that I was getting back into electronics, and so they heard about this on the news. So they're like, oh, Bill will like this. So they bought this for me. I didn't know what to do with it. I knew it was a debugger. I knew that you could do naughty things with it, but I didn't believe any of that. So it kind of hung around, and in fact, it's kind of like a little Tamagotchi, a little cybernetic dolphin pet. And it hates me now because I ignored it for about a year. And it gets really cranky, and I cannot get it to love me again. But so as I was kind of like looking for projects and trying to figure out what else to do, it struck me that I see a lot of modules for this thing. So if you look at the top, you've got GPIO ports here that you can plug things into. Wi-Fi dev board is the one I have that lets you actually sniff Wi-Fi networks and pen tests and all of that. And I tried that for about 5 minutes. I'm really bad at it. So again, thing languished. But then it struck me, it's like, I hold a amateur radio license. I'm a general amateur radio operator. And I looked around and I noticed that there was absolutely zero ham radio stuff for the Flipper Zero. So I happened to see on AliExpress as I was scrolling this square thing right here, which is an integrated UHF transmitter, or transceiver rather. So this is the heart of what we call the Baofeng radios. These are the cheap radios that you usually give away to like newly minted hams. This is the heart of it. It costs like $6. So I grabbed a couple of them and I soldered it into this little board, which I called the Flipper Squeaker, because it squeaks like a dolphin, right? It's a radio module. So the idea is basically it's a really, really slim, portable VHF transceiver to do phone and possibly CW work in your pocket that you can carry around. Very low wattage. This only runs about 2 watts. This is the prototype board. I just built this literally yesterday. I got the boards in from PCBWay and strung it all together, and it kind of works even for the first one I've ever built. It doesn't send. It won't transmit for some reason. I can't pick up a carrier wave. So I don't know if I maybe blew it up when I put it together. That's possible. Or if I got a dud, that's also possible. So I'm still kind of working on it. But the fact that I could plug this in to the Flipper Zero, have some LEDs come on, and actually hear the local weather station was way better than I ever expected. I half expected to be buying a new Flipper Zero as well. So I call that an unmitigated success for the first time I've ever actually built a real 4-layer board. What's next? Probably going to try to figure out why I don't know how transistors work anymore. I got to figure that out, and then I might be able to have this thing actually transmit. So, questions? Yeah.
Yeah, do you have to run any code to support in radio and Flipper Zero?
Did I have to write any code? Well, so I do have to write code. Part of the reason why I put this together like this is because it's kind of a pain to like breadboard this big fat module with the castellated pads on it. It's hard to get this into a breadboard and then into the Flipper Zero. So I figured it's easier to just make a board that I can manipulate a little bit, plug it in, and then write the C++ code. Because I don't know how to speak C++ yet. So I got to kind of learn that too. I do speak Python and I understand enough C syntax. I think I can probably get away with it. The biggest problem is mostly controlling some of the active and inactive pins. So yes, it will need to be programmed in. Like when I do get this all together, I will be dropping this on GitHub. Yeah. And also the programming, it's the syntax for it. The programming manual is really simple. It's literally like a couple of ASCII commands and some numbers. Like I can talk to it through the UART terminal just easily with just like with my thumbs. That's why I would show you all, but it takes like 10 minutes to set up and it's super obnoxious. So obviously, yeah. Other questions? Great. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, we do have a few events. Tonight is new member onboarding. If you have never been to that before, I highly recommend it. Learn a little bit about what we do here, why we do it. If you are becoming a member, it is a requirement to do that before you become a full member. And so tonight, that happens about 2 times a month. Tonight is one of those times, so make sure you catch that if you can. Friday, Laurie's going to do a monster workshop. Where you will make monsters with sewing, and Laurie will teach you how to do that. Materials will be supplied, right? So, yeah. So check out our calendar, sign up, come to that. That sounds fun. Also, hand plane rescue. That is taking old hand planes and restoring them, or?
It's a demo of what I look for in an old hand plane and then how we actually bring it up to perfectly functional.
There you
Maybe a
go.
couple hours, it's free.
There you go. It's free. Show up, sign up so they know how many are coming. About hand plane rescue, spreading the good word again. This Saturday is a Moonraker 101 class. I didn't check to see whether that was sold out or not. Does anybody know? Not yet. So there are a few tickets left. Grab those. That's our big CO2 laser cutter. This is the auth class to get to use it. Sign up. We do not have a crossbow one up yet. We'll get that up soon. So. Sunday is a board meeting. If you're a member, you are invited. We'll put a link out on the chat to come see how the sausage is made around here, to come to that. Next week is a blacksmithing whack and yak. I think that's the social night for blacksmithing. Come out, hang out, learn some cool things. Yeah. 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 Bring a project, get some help, hang out, have fun.
Be authorized first.
You do not have to be authorized, or do you?
Why not? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. There you go.
If you're not authorized, I probably won't let you swing a hammer.
Yeah. So there are limitations if you are not authorized, but
Come and learn and chat.
yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, come on. That is it for these. That is it. If you are new here and you have not gotten a tour yet, you have questions about who we are, you should probably come to new member onboarding and learn about that. But if not, catch somebody with a red badge. We'll answer any questions you can, get you a tour if you haven't got one yet. We're going to take a break here for just a minute and let them set up for new member onboarding, and then we're going to start that in the classroom. Otherwise, we'll be hanging out in the workshop. Good? All right, let's do it.